On Sunday, France went to the polls for the second and final round of the legislative election. In the end, despite an unprecedented victory in the first round, not only did Marine Le Pen's National Rally fail to win an outright majority in the National Assembly, thanks largely to a record number of tactical alliances between centrist and left-wing candidates, but the new left-wing Popular Front coalition actually came out on top. So in this video, we're going to explain what happened on Sunday, the so-called Republican front that emerged over the past week, and what happens next. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. So, let's start with a quick recap. We did a full video on the first round results last week, so go and watch that if you want to know more. But the TLDR is that the French National Assembly elections, which just happened, were held in 2 rounds. In each constituency, if no candidate won a majority of the votes in the first round, then the top 2, as well as anyone else who received votes equivalent to at least 12.5% of registered voters, go through to the second round, where whoever gets the most votes wins. Now, usually only 2 candidates go through to the second round, and 3 candidate runoffs, known in France as a triangulaire, are pretty rare. In 2017, for instance, there was only 1 triangulaire, and in 2022, there were only 8. However, this time around, that's not how things panned out, because turnout came in at a sky-high 67%, up nearly 20 points from 2022, and the highest since 1986. And the vote was also relatively evenly split between the 3 main parties in the first round, meaning that there were a ridiculous 306 three-way runoffs, and even 5 four-way runoffs. The vast majority of these triangulaires were between the right-wing National Rally, the left-wing NFP, and Macron's centrist coalition. But about 30 were between the National Rally, the MFP, and the centre-right Republicans, who outperformed the polls and won about 10% of the popular vote in the first round. This was all utterly unprecedented. The previous record for triangulaires was 105 in 1997, and the last time there was a 4-way runoff was way back in 1973. And that meant that what happened in the second round would depend more than ever on whether or not the various parties, and especially NFP and Macron's ensemble, could strike a deal to squeeze out the National Rally. And this is what's previously happened at previous French elections. At both the legislative and presidential level, centrist, left-leaning, and even centre-right parties like the Republicans have stepped aside for one another to keep out the National Rally and its predecessor Jean-Marie Le Pen's National Front. This cordon sanitaire is known in France as the Republican Front, and it's proven remarkably successful in the past. In the 2002 presidential election, for instance, after losing to Jean-Marie Le Pen in the first round, the socialists threw their support behind their nominal rival, Republican candidate Jacques Chirac, who then beat Le Pen with a ridiculous 82% of the popular vote. However, its efficacy has waned over time, and especially after Marine Le Pen succeeded her father in 2011 and began detoxifying the brand. In 2017 and 2022, for instance, both the socialists and Republicans backed Macron over Marine Le Pen. But despite the backing of both establishment parties, Macron never enjoyed the margins that Chirac saw in 2002, winning just 66% in 2017 and just 56% in 2022. Perhaps more tellingly, in the 2022 parliamentary elections, Macron's centrist coalition refused to back the left-wing candidates from the NUPES coalition, which was led by Jean-Luc Mélenchon's France Unbound party. There were less runoffs in 2022, so the lack of goodwill between Macron and Mélenchon was less electorally significant, but it still helped the National Rally massively outperform polls in the second round, winning a record 89 seats. Anyway, this is why when the first round results were announced, it wasn't clear whether the cordon sanitaire would materialize. While Jean-Luc Mélenchon quickly came out and said that the NFP would pull out of any triangulaire where they were third placed, vowing not a single vote for the National Rally, Macron and his allies were a bit more equivocal. Prime Minister Gabriel Attal encouraged tactical voting in order to prevent the National Rally from having an absolute majority in the second round. But Macron himself only called for voters to rally behind candidates who are, quote, clearly Republican and democratic, i.e. not candidates from France Unbound. And Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire said that France Unbowed are as dangerous as the National Rally. However, in the end, it seems like the Republican front actually emerged stronger than expected. By Tuesday night, the deadline for candidate withdrawal, 132 left-wing candidates had stepped down for centrists, and 83 centrist candidates had stood down for the left, including at least one candidate who stood down despite Macron personally telling them not to. This meant that there are only a handful of triangulaires left between the National Rally, Ensemble, and the NFP. Now, most people thought that this Republican front was never going to be as effective as it has been in the past, let alone totally effective. In other words, there was no way that 100% of first-round NFP voters were going to vote for Ensemble in the second round instead. Nor was there any chance that 100% of first-round Ensemble voters would lend their votes to NFP. This is because some of the more right-leaning Ensemble voters actually prefer the National Rally to the NFP, and some more anti-establishment NFP voters actually prefer the National Rally to Ensemble. However, in the end, it looks like the Republican front worked remarkably well, and the National Rally ended up coming well short of a majority, which is clearly what Le Pen was hoping for after the first round. In fact, not only did the National Rally fall short of a majority, they actually lost to both the NFP and Macron's alliance. With the votes counted, the NFP are on 182 seats, Macron's alliance are on 168, and the National Rally on just 143. Of the remaining 84 seats, 45 went to the centre-right Republicans, and the remaining 39 went to smaller parties or independent candidates, including France's first ever Basque nationalist deputy, to complement the political resurgence of the Basque Nationalist Party in Spain. Turnout was also extraordinarily high, coming in at nearly 60% as of 5 p.m, the highest since 1981. Regardless, this result didn't go down too well with the National Rally. Their would-be Prime Minister described the result as a stitch-up, and French Twitter has been full of clips of National Rally supporters reacting to the exit poll. Now, at first glance, this looks like a massive win for Macron. His basic thesis that people vote for the National Rally as a protest vote, but don't actually want them in power, has apparently been proven correct. And not only that, but his alliance have also massively outperformed expectations. However, they still lost nearly 100 seats, and Macron now has the extraordinarily difficult job of building a majority coalition, which will require multiple parties from across the political spectrum. If this coalition fails, Macron will be blamed for the ensuing instability, and the National Rally will be able to present themselves as the only real opposition going into presidential elections. If you want to learn more about the French and European elections, then we have articles discussing both topics in too long. Our 60-page, high-quality magazine full of TLDR's very best journalism. This issue is focused on the UK election, diving deep into the campaign, the results, and how the winners plan to fix Britain. It's more than just Britain, though, with stories including the European parliamentary elections, the countries likely to join the EU next, the latest from Gaza, the rise of Milei, and of course the US election. Now, we've decided to make the magazine for two reasons. Firstly, it allows our journalists to write in more detail, diving deeper and ignoring algorithmic restrictions to produce the best work we can. And secondly, it's a good way for you to support TLDR and will help us to produce free YouTube videos as long as we can. If you're interested, then you can pick up a copy from our website, where we're selling 2 editions of the magazine. Firstly, there's the standard edition, and then there's the premium edition, which gets your name printed in the thank you section of the magazine, and exclusive access to our behind the scenes podcast. Oh, and by the way, we're going to be making an issue of Too Long every 4 months. So if you want to ensure that you never miss an issue, then you can subscribe, which gets you a 25% discount. If you have more questions, there's a full Q&A linked in the description, where you'll also find a link to our store. And while you're there, make sure you use the code ELECTIONWEEK to get an additional £2 off any purchase. Thanks so much for hearing me out, and if you are interested, please do pick up a copy, as it's a great way to support our journalism and help us to continue making free YouTube videos as long as we can.